Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so excited to be here with you tonight and share with you my guest, who I'm going to introduce to you in a minute. Tonight's topic, rules for a successful marriage and talking about finances, has been a topic long in the coming. Now, I meet with couples individually, together, on a business side, on so many different levels. And I see couples how it is so hard for them to speak about money and really find ways to work together. I don't always get the pleasure to work with them together. At times, I work with them individually and they're relaying it to the spouse. So what happens is that it's their translation. So it's not always the exact thing of what I was trying to say. So tonight's guest is Menachem White. He is a family law attorney, and he's going to tell you more about himself, and what he does. And I thought it was important to bring on a family law attorney. Hello from Atlanta. I'm so happy you came. Um, I thought it was important for a family law attorney how he sees so many things from all the works of the world. So, without further ado, Mendy, welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you today?
I'm good, Margot. Hope you're doing well today.
Good, good, good. You want to tell everybody about yourself?
Sure. I'm a former prosecutor. I grew up in Brooklyn. I've been in private practice for about 10 years after I left the DA's office. My areas of knowledge are family law and criminal law. I primarily deal with financial issues with family, legal court, and divorce cases. And unfortunately, the biggest issues I find are financial fighting. And it's a big issue that I found that people don't have the knowledge to discuss these issues, and it then becomes a huge fight later on in the relationship, and it's one of the many issues causing the divorces that I've observed. So I thought you and I could discuss these things together in order to help people, whether they're dating or they're actually married already, to learn ideas that can help protect their marriage or relationship in that regard.
Sorry about that. Totally.
You
It's,
froze.
yeah. So, am I back now?
You're back.
Okay. It's so true. Like, it could be something so simple how one of the spouses want a fancy car and the other one doesn't want to pay for it, or they think they can't afford it and the other one says, I deserve it. And then somehow they sign the lease. And then because the other person didn't think that they can afford it or whatever, it becomes that person's responsibility in that relationship.
I make it
However,
a little bit worse actually. It's when they actually go and spend the money and they don't actually tell their spouse even. They go and
yeah,
buy a $10,000 ring. They go buy a $25,000 car. Oh, like those Lexus commercials. Oh, look, surprise! It's a $45,000 car, and the wife screams, "We can't even pay the mortgage. You bought me a $45,000 car." It doesn't. That's not real life. You can't do
totally,
that. You want
totally.
you
So
want to buy
jumping in,
flowers? You want to buy flowers? You do buy flowers. You don't buy $15,000 jewelry if you go can't pay your mortgage or buy food.
totally. So on that note, I actually have a client who told me this, where he bought his wife a Lexus, and they were trying to reconnect in intimacy in ways, but she wouldn't have a financial conversation with him. So he wanted to give her a gift, and he bought a Lexus. And his,
Wow.
yeah, and his theory was is that he was able to pay for it with like some type of like not like when you get the like the dividends, like when you sell other people's products. So
Yeah.
I forget what it's called. um and he was making significant money from it, so he felt like he wasn't even spending
Commission?
commission, right? Commission, but like it's something like the influencers, like when you sell their courses and stuff.
Yeah.
um and it didn't really work. So
Well, that's another it's a side issue my wife talks about is the different love languages people have. Some people want to be held, some people want to be said nice things to, some people want to be buy gifts of money. Some people want to be fed food. Mine is giving me food. But the love language, the way to my heart is my stomach. I tell it to my wife all the time. It's very easy. But some people, I know some people in my family, you show your love by buying them gifts, and that's how they feel love. Whether it's healthy or not is another issue. I'm not going to get into today. But there's a book called The Five Love Languages in which people they discuss those issues about how different people feel love from each other. So it could be a
Mm.
massage, it could be you look nice today, or here's a $3,000 gift. Everyone has their own unique language how they feel love from another person.
So we actually we're doing this in reverse our questions, which is totally fine. But I love this, um, and that goes into like one of my rules for like a money date. We were talking about this like right before how you know doing something like what do you see from a family law perspective, for a couple about money, and a foundation is to talk about it, is to be able to talk about it. And what I do with couples is that I teach them a money date. And one of the things I say about with a money date is right before that, do something that's going to ground you and make you ready for the conversation. So if it's like hugging or whatever those things like that you're talking about, it gets you in preparation for that, because it can be a hard conversation. I mean, what I see is that couples right now, once one is more powerful than they used to be, meaning like they made more money, they don't know how to deal with it anymore. Or they took advice from like somebody from like a coffee date and like they wrote it on a napkin, and now that became their go-to topic, their go-to style, or tool to communicate that. How do you see that, like in
Uh,
family law? Like,
I'll
what are the
use
basic?
I'll
Okay.
just give you my own life example from when I met my wife. I we did matchmaking dates, so we had a matchmaker who set us up on dates. This one religious matchmaker from California gave me a list of questions. One of them was, "Are you a saver or a spender? Are you about student debt?" And I took these questions. I asked my wife on our dates while we were dating, like our third, fourth date. We date really quickly in my family, so we were engaged in
How long
seven
did you
weeks.
guys date for?
Well, 7 weeks before we got engaged. So
7
yeah,
weeks.
that's long term in my family. My parents were engaged after a week. So, like I said, but at the end of the day, my wife and I, we learned a lot. And again, even though I had the question, again, life is still hard, marriage is still hard, it's a daily battle. But these are things that if you discuss them before you get married, if because my wife and I follow a man named Dave Ramsey. He's an evangelical Christian radio host.
Oh yeah, how could you not
And
know Dave Ramsey?
again, there are people who don't know him. And my wife and I learned very quickly from him that in every marriage you'll find one's a nerd and one's a spender. So with the nerd, they're like the mathematicians, they're the savers, and then there's the spender. When we started, I was the spender, my wife was a nerd. And 5 years later, I was a nerd, she was a spender. Now we've changed back and forth, we're both a little bit of everything. But it was one of those things where we discussed it on our dates. And I've seen, unfortunately, in a lot of marriages, they never discuss these things.
And then
Like,
all of a sudden they feel like they're going to pull it together once they're married.
not even that. Some of my clients say they never know the husband or wife. It's well, it goes both ways, by the way. That they have never known what their spouse made. They never did joint tax returns. They never seen their spouse's bank account statements. They're just neighbors or roommates. They just keep everything private, and they don't share anything. And the only time they find out about what the person has is once we're in divorce court, and therein lies the issue.
I see that a lot where couples, they come in, they have no idea what the husband makes, or the rare case of what the wife makes, and the wife is like scrounging, and she's just trying to figure out like why certain things are so hard when certain things seem better. And the husband will just say whatever she wants, whatever she wants, because he's hiding so much, and he you know can't come to surface with it. As a
You froze, Margot.
yeah, there we go. you know I see this all the time that my clients, they will not talk to each other. And when I'm responsible for joint partnerships, I always encourage that the other partner has to come. What would you say like are the basic foundations from the family law side that you see with couples and money that they should instill? Like let's get to the skills of.
Well, I'll tell you this. I quote my friend's mother, who I considered a second mother to me. She told me the basis of a marriage itself were trust, communication, and physical and emotional attraction. And when it comes to marriage, the emotional part, a lot of times there's no trust or communication about money. So it's like the parties cannot.
You hear my dog?
I do. I heard the common attack. The parties don't talk. Like one party, you'll have sometimes the one party to get pregnant, the wife stays home, the father makes all the money, or vice versa, whatever happens. I actually have seen both, by the way, where the dad stays home too while the mom works. But they just don't tell each other anything. There's just such one sidedness. Like, oh, here's an allowance, here's some money. Like one party will not have any access to it. They will, or one party will just, they each have their own money. So there's no, it's a partnership. Whenever some,
Right. And the foundation of a partnership is equal say and to be able to hear each other. And the part that I see with money is that couples are not open to even looking at the bank accounts together, knowing what it is. Generally, it comes down to if there was a hard month or hard months and somebody is ashamed of maybe not as much profit or a time that they can't do something, that they can't come out and say it, that it becomes with a lot of shame, or they are worried if the partner is going to take something from the other one and not realizing that if they do take it or if they have input, it will only create more opportunities for each other and your children.
I
So,
think it's a little worse than that. It's the idea of this is mine, this is yours. There's like an ownership. I think people, there are issues where people are embarrassed of it. Like I know I have friends who are very powerful women in their jobs, and the men they date cannot handle that. So that's a side issue. But I'll give you an example. When I was starting as a prosecutor, my wife made twice my income, easily, and I didn't give a damn. It was wonderful. I had someone paying my bills while I was learning my area of practice. She's a
so
successful
talk
lawyer.
about that part. Let's harp on
Yeah,
that a little bit if you're okay with that, because
always.
these days, especially post COVID, women are stepping up to the plate and looking to make more money. What I see is that women are almost like hiding it and they're putting themselves in the corner when it comes to that because they're still stuck to that scope of housewife going into the
Uh,
kitchen and
I
taking
think
care.
it's the opposite. I think it's the men who are more in that area than the women. I see a lot of my friends from law school. Look at yourself. You're a successful accountant. I have friends who are very successful attorneys, therapists, and so on. And sometimes, some odd reason, the men are unable to accept that a woman can make more money than them.
Right.
One of my friends she is a successful entrepreneur. She was dating a truck driver, and he got abusive because he was upset that she was making three times his income, and it was very hard on him to handle that. And it may be from a country standpoint, whether it's from Eastern Europe or Israel or even Afghanistan. It doesn't matter. It's a human trait that some odd reason men feel that they need to make more money, and I think that is a very,
In the Sephardic community, it's huge
it's a
that.
Neanderthal observation. Look in the very ultra orthodox religion in communities, not religion, ultra orthodox communities. The men pray and learn all day. The women work. They don't care. They're like, someone's supporting me while I do what I love. That's how, again, that's a strange way of looking at it, but that's the way of doing it. You each do what you love. If the wife wants to be a stay-at-home mom, that's great. If the dad wants to be a guy who learns all day or volunteers with people and the wife supports him, that's up to them to agree to it. But at least they agree to it. I can respect people who do things because they came to an agreement. This is the lifestyle and the type of life they want, and that's fine. It's the problem is when one party makes a decision. Like, I'll give you a great example. My wife took off for 6 months. We had a baby 6 months ago. I said, go ahead, whatever you decide. You have to do you. But we discussed it before she did it. It
Mm.
wasn't all of a sudden, oh, honey, I'm taking off 6 months, kiss my butt. It was a conversation. And the problem is communication in marriages is that they don't discuss these things. In dating, they don't discuss these things. They date, they have a good time, they think they're in love, they
They
get
think it's about
married.
the la la life and don't realize the technicalities. Or also, what I see is it's like it's behind mommy and daddy's money that they are getting off in life and not really saying
Oh,
yes.
that would be nice to have mommy and daddy support me. That would be amazing. But unfortunately, I don't live in La La Land. It took me 6.5 years to pay off my student debt after my wife and I got married.
Mm.
6 years of hell, living very frugally. We did very Dave Ramsey lifestyle. By the time we paid it off, we had $2,000, $3,000 to our names, but we were debt free. So that was
But would you change it for the world, that
no,
experience?
no. I learned it was a I would have done it faster. Let's put it that way. It was a very long road, but we did it together. We had ideas. Like we everything we did as a team. And the problem with marriages today that I've observed is there are no teams. It's me.
Right. It's pointing the finger.
No, it's
You.
not even that. As a rabbi once said to me, any conversation that starts with the word "I did this" is a fight.
Mm.
If you put the word "I did this" or "I anything," unless you say "I love you" or "I am wrong," you're starting a fight. And because you're saying, again, I work very hard. I know that, but my wife works just as hard as I do. Even when she's home for 6 months, she worked her butt off taking care of 4 children. So at the end of the day, we each
Let's
put
talk about that because from a
this
woman,
one.
I see that part a lot is that, women with that role or with that label that they have to take care of the kids. And then the husband says, I'm making the money while they're staying home, while they think it's a light job. Can you talk to the men out there, for tips around that?
Yeah.
And
Well, let me
and
put
the
it this way. I want to say I read a New York Times article a few months ago about the situation. Funny enough, about when certain jobs in a house a man does, certain job a woman does, like that is like not that they should do, but that there's a periodical idea that this is their job. Like one person does the dishes, one does the laundry, one does the bedrooms, one does the vacuuming and so on. So they say certain job the man will do, certain job the woman do. They had an article about in the gay community, they don't have that in the gay marriages because you have two men or two women. They don't have that hierarchy of who does what. They each split it 50-50. And that's how marriage should be. It's not saying I have this job, I have this job. First of all, when a couple gets divorced and she was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years, she is she helped support his ability to work. The biggest case that we ever had in law school was actually the man stayed home. He was the wife's voice teacher. She was a opera singer, and he got to share her business because he stayed home with the kids and taught her to sing. So therefore, that's what again. It goes both ways. Sometimes the man stays home, and the woman stays home. But at the end of the day, you each are putting in equal time and equal effort. Just because one person does a 12-hour shift with the kids and one does a kid 12-hour shift in the hospital or in the law office or in the firm, you've each done a lot of work, and you can't say I do more than you.
if you see a couple fighting, if you hear that a couple is fighting, or if we know of a couple that's, really arguing over money and it's consistent, is there specific advice or steps that you would say to help them to avoid going to a traumatic event like a divorce or a separation?
It depends how far they've gone because at a certain point, it is extreme in the Hasidic thought. Is one of the hardest things to change is a habit. If you've been doing life a certain way for 10, 15, 20 years, it's extremely hard to change your thought process. So if you think if a man or a woman thinks I'm in charge, I make the money, do what I want, you don't have a relationship. You don't have a marriage. You have
It's
roommates,
almost like you have to start from the beginning if you really want to stay
which
together with
which
that
is which
spouse.
which is why I say when you're dating, you should be discussing these things. So, because remember, I know my wife came from a different lifestyle than I did. We came from different states, different wealth factors, not wealth factors, but like different financial lifestyles in our lives. Because Baltimore and New York are very different financial. I'm not sure what the right word would be. Levels, I guess. So the middle class in Baltimore might be upper class here, and the lower class there might be middle class here. It's like it's a dichotomy of different states of what income you need to survive, and as in any shape, again, if the people are willing to change, go for it. But you also can't expect people to change either. Like I tell people all the time, if you want to marry somebody and expect them to change, you might as well break up now because it won't work. People don't change. You can't expect someone to change for you because they never
Right. It's
will.
like forcing results versus accepting where they're at and loving that person the
Exactly.
way they are and working together to grow
Mm-hmm.
instead of starting off so separate. So it sounds like to me, really, before the ring gets on the finger and you're talking about marriage, it's like, hey,
You froze again, Margot.
sorry guys tonight about this. Optima must having some
The last
challenge.
word I heard was "hey."
So it's like at the dating stage, a woman probably wants to ask, but she's probably so excited because she likes him and all of these things. Like, what would be a good starting point for this woman or this couple to ask each
Oh,
other
easy.
versus
That's easy. You take a list of questions and you ask them. You make it a game. You say, "Are you a spender or a saver? How much student loans do you have?" Ask my wife. I didn't know how much student debt I had when we were dating. I just didn't know. I didn't care. I was 26 years old, and I
I
was just
see that all the time. People don't
people don't what? Margot, you froze again.
they pay the minimum due, which is not the problem. The problem is that nobody pays attention to how much that they're actually accruing to have a plan
Oh,
for the
I
day.
was worse. I didn't even know what I owed. Forget I was making the minimum payments, and I didn't even know what I owed. I had no idea. I didn't know who owned my loans or anything. But I think at the end of the day is that the problem I've observed of people dating in this day and age is that they date for fun. They don't date with the purpose of actual marriage, because if they did, they would be asking these questions. Meaning, it's not like you don't just go to a movie every day or talk online and talk about sports or Trump or Biden or COVID or the world coming to an end. You talk about children. You talk about money. You talk about your future thoughts, where you want to live. Like, a marriage is communication. And I use one example of one of my wife's friends who broke up her engagement because the guy bought her a house in Canada without telling her about it. So he was just going to move them there without having a conversation. That is a breakdown in communication. You can't have that. You need to have conversations. Every time my wife and I decided to move, we spoke about it. Where are we going? What are we doing? And I'm going to be very honest about something. I don't have the perfect marriage. No one does. Everyone's going to fight. But I quote my friend Douglas Marquez, who I think is one of the smartest men I've ever met. And he taught me two things about marriage that I live with every day. He said, one, a marriage is, well, the initial spark you have is going to die. You have to relight it with something else. Because you'll
Mm.
never have that initial lust is gone after a year. It's you're fighting, you're having kids, you're doing this. You have to have new adventures and new candle. And the second one thing that he taught me is that when the day that you don't want to say you're sorry, even though you know you're right, is when the marriage is over. If
Mm.
you don't want to say you're sorry, why you move on, find
You're
someone else.
dropping some big gems here. So,
I try.
so you know what I'm going to say here, from a CFO perspective is
What's that?
like you could either be right or in a relationship.
you
And
know,
sometimes you have to let the guards down, or that song, let the dogs out,
who
you
let the
know.
dogs out?
Yeah. And you just have to find a way, to make it work. It doesn't mean because your partner doesn't agree with you that they're wrong or bad. It just means that you haven't created a possibility that as a team works for you yet. And this is where support and guidance will help you. Someone like myself, even Menachem, even though it may not be necessarily a divorce, but it's going to someone for support and creating some type of structure for you that it could be legally bound. I mean, like, I have this client, and she talks about where she promotes, she's another attorney client of mine, and what she promotes is like some type of money contract. Of course, I forget what it's called for the moment.
A
And
prenuptial agreement?
a what?
A prenup?
No, but like, even she talks about it, like, even within the marriage, like how it's going to go, like all the rules around it. I'm going to send you the book, and for you to read it.
Sure.
I actually have it. I could just give it to you. um
I like free books. Don't tell my wife. My wife, I told you, I found this phrase on Facebook. My friend Zori put it up. It says, buy 10 books, read 3, buy 10 more, read 3 more, continue until your house explodes with books. I live my life with that phrase. I love free books.
you
My
love
wife does not like me having so many books, but that's one of our agreements to disagree, where she just accepts it. One of my mental health issues that I like reading according in her thought process. But
love it.
she likes comics, I like reading. So it's very different personalities in that regard.
But
But
you see, my friends, there it's just finding a way to make it work, that it doesn't come to divorce, it doesn't come to life transitions, because divorce doesn't solve problems. What it does is it just puts pressure on all the parties, and it just creates new pressures and new stressors in a different way. If it has to happen, it happens. But start your conversations earlier in the game with your partner, your loved one, about money, so that you can grow together and learn from each other, and take that from each other to really build, and that your kids see that as an example. I'll tell you, as growing up, my father struggled. My father worked hard. He worked night and day. He took night shifts. He would take on extra shifts because life was tough for us. We were check to check. However, I will tell you, I thought my whole life that that's the only way it could be, by working harder. Now I have different tools of working smarter, but he did what he needed to do to make it for the family. But he always spoke about it with my mother, or to the degree that he knew how to talk about it. And when you have that as a foundation, you're also going to have that when your kids see that to their friends and anybody who's around them, because it could just happen with anybody that you have a money occurrence. You have to pay your house help, you have to pay the gardener, the roofer, all of these things. It's learning how to make a money agreement with someone that works for the both of you. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I had this couple of mine, and they came for help. I'm going to say they were on the brinks of a divorce, or at least she was. And she said to me, she goes, "He's willing to come for coaching with you, Margot." And I was like, "Really? Bring this guy on." I was like, "You don't know what diamonds that you have." And she's like, "Really? I don't know if I can do this," and blah, 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 and different things. I said to her, "Let's just try one session." I tell you, they're on the other side of it now. Why am I bringing up this couple? They didn't know how to talk about money, but she used to think all of her beliefs from childhood were the only way. She really didn't realize that her husband really had her best interest at heart. She was so focused on her childhood beliefs, on the way things should be. But once we saw how to take those shoulds away, and that they were outside of her, and that they were not who she was, and recreate that bond, a whole new evolution came between the two of them, to really see what can come of different solutions. And boy, do they work together well? And I see from them wins and all of these things. And again, no partnership is perfect, but it's really finding that bridge together to begin, that you see that there's a problem and get support. I just want to talk about the shame around money for a few minutes because it is just so common. I have one client of mine. He, from birth, he just was on to him. He worked from very early. And he used to tell me how it was like his righteous, like, generation, like he called it something like that, his righteous generation duty, that he was to make money. And he was working hard. He made it for his mother, his father, his children. Like he was supporting a lot of people. But what he lost was himself by doing that. And you don't have to lose yourself in order to provide and in order to have a relationship. What you need is that step to take together so that you can respect each other or even your child on how you handle it. Let's say in the store, for instance, I'll tell you today, my daughter went for something and we were shocked at the price. And the lady was like, "Oh, what we do for our children." Thank God I was able to pay it. However, how I handled it was like, I want you to enjoy Allison. I was shocked a little bit, but I wanted her to have it and she enjoyed it. She was bubbly, she was smiley, and it just made her like she was laughing. So sometimes even those occurrences and knowing how to handle it, those occurrences happen for you. So like when Mendy was saying about, trust each other and to listen, these are really the foundations to start early in your relationship before the ring gets on her finger. Even while you're talking about marriage, because when you have kids, you have private school, private colleges, possibly. That stuff is big. I mean, I have 2 more years of private school and I'm done. Both my kids, thank God, have.
I am so jealous right now of that, by the way.
But I
I
have
have
two, and you, God bless, have four. It's a
I have
big,
18 more years of private school. Dear
but it's
God.
a gift.
Oh, it's a gift, but it's hard. It is
It's
a
hard,
it's a
right?
stress.
It's the struggle every day to stand up to that. Um, and I think it's amazing. There's millions of ways I can help you tax wise. There's lots of strategies that I can help you from a foundation standpoint of bookkeeping. However, I want you to get the message tonight of the skills that we shared with you in terms of a partnership so that you get those foundations in your money partnership and have the money date, whether it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, sit and talk to each other. And what's to come out of that money date is to listen to each other. It's not to cut off each other. It's even to sit with a pen and paper and write down what that person said that either ticked the bejitters out of you or something that you just want to respond to, and take your time to respond. You don't want to get angry. You don't want to regret anything. So, uh, you know, uh, I see this all the time with couples, and it's somehow in my space more and more. And I really want to put this out there about a money date with couples so that it's easier to talk with each other. And I have some resources on that I can share with you all, on how to do that. And the main thing is to listen. And, with that, Mendy, I'm going to pass it back to you. If, while we try to loop this back together, is there something more you want to add to this
Yeah.
topic or?
Well, I was I do a lot of prenuptial agreements, and I was actually just saying because I somehow helped break up the engagement because they sent us such a one-sided agreement. I made my changes. I felt that would be fair to both sides. I had the other side had millions of dollars in assets. My client has nothing. She's a young 19-year-old girl from New York City. He is from New Jersey. I'm changing the locations for obvious reasons. And they sent me this prenuptial agreement, and I said, "This is disgusting. Like, he owns a house. But if he buys any real estate, if he buys any businesses during the marriage, it's all his. And I made my changes with my client and her parents, and I sent them back, and the guy's attorney calls me and says, no, we're not accepting any changes. I said, what do you mean? So why did you send me a prenup with to make changes? Well, we wanted to be nice and let you have the opportunity, but we're not agreeing to anything. He does not want an economic partnership. And I said, what do you mean? Anything is his is his. Anything is hers is hers. And I said, so they're just going to be friends of benefits. He said, yeah. He wants to get married, but he wants to keep everything to himself in case they break up. So they can be married 30 years. She'll walk away with nothing. So I explained to her that I would advise against signing this agreement. Her parents called me and said, thank you so much. They broke up the engagement. I felt bad, and the parents said, what is wrong with you? You saved her life. This guy it's abusive. It was literally the most abusive agreement I've ever read in my life.
So in the Sephardic community, and even outside the Sephardic community, I'm seeing it more, where women compromise and they belittle themselves, or they put themselves in a box to get married, where they think, you know, to live through life it's just the spouse. But I could tell you, ladies, being financially independent and having those skills are your foundations. Whether you make $25,000 a year, $250,000, or $2 million a year, you still need the foundations to learn how to pay bills, to make money, to learn how to save, increase that muscle of savings, putting away for retirement if you want to buy real estate, all of these things. But listen to that, where she was going to because she thought she was in love, and unfortunately, this man just wanted benefit, which it's okay what he wants. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not good for the woman who now can go on 20 years or 50 years and not have a dime to her name and be left on the street. And unfortunately, I see that consistently with ladies. And it's my job and my journey to help women learn these skills and to become more financially independent. And also, hopefully, men see to respect that and also think it's like hot or even sexy that a woman can help, and to elevate your relationship and to respect her. It's a whole different style. Unfortunately, right now, I don't see much of it, but I'm hoping with raising the awareness that people really do.
You hope.
I hope. And with increasing awareness, I'm going to close tonight's live with that. And any further questions, we'll be checking this live. If you don't want to put your questions because some situations could be more private than others, you know how to find me in DM. Menachem Under will put his information if that's helpful. However, you can also DM him on Facebook and LinkedIn and contact him if you, for whatever reason. However, sharing is caring. And if there's a topic that you want to see, please feel free to let us know, because this was a hot topic that was asked on my side. And I know he saw the need on his side, and I'm glad we made it work finally. So
Just so I know, where do I put in my information here? I'm having to try to do this.
below the post, when I close it, just go to the post and I can show you after offline.
Okay.
It's a great question.
Might as well ask. When in doubt, don't feel. And that's one last thing I want to say. Don't ever think that you shouldn't ask questions. You can always ask a question, because the day you think you know everything about anything, especially marriage, it's over. The day I think I know all about the law and I know everything there is to know, I'm retiring, because I lost my mind. Because you can't know everything. It's called the practice of law. You'll never master it. You'll practice it every single day. A marriage is a daily battle, a daily to
I was
survive.
going to call it a journey.
I'm going to call it a battle. It's easier. I've been married 10 years at this point. It's a battle every single day, and it's a good battle. It's not a negative connotation, but it is, because for two people who, to quote my wife's sister, to two people who grew up in different states, sometimes different countries, different parents, different customs, sometimes different religions, it's hard because you fight with your sisters, you fight with your siblings. You probably punched your brother once in your or twice in your life, you know. So you don't think you're gonna fight with a complete stranger you've known that you just met? It's gonna happen. Obviously, you don't want the physical fights, but you're going to fight. You're going to have battles, but just being able to apologize and accept that you made a mistake, that's the way to have a happy marriage. Communication, talking. Oh, and if your daughter asks you, can she watch a show? Ask her, what did your mother say? Instead of just jumping, because
If she's asking you and not her mother, you
I
know that.
know she's asked her mother already because you know that I think she thinks I don't. It's the same answer every time. What did your mother say? She told me to ask you. Well, go ask her. Leave me alone. But if she said no, I'll say, okay, your mother said no. Have a nice day. You have to be on the same side. It's a team, especially when you're outnumbered 4-2. You have to be out. You're outnumbered. You need to have teamwork because you won't survive your children otherwise.
You won't survive your children, right? It's setting the example for your children so that they have it. The way you do one thing is the way you do another.
I want to say one last thing. Actually, is that
Um,
I remember when I was 17. I went to Israel for the year, and I went to my father's friend's house in Israel. And some odd reason, I was very confused that the wife was in one bedroom, the husband was in another bedroom. I didn't understand it. It took me a while to realize. I think I'm 17 years old, and my parents have their own room and so on. You don't think about it. These people couldn't afford their own apartments. So they lived together in the same apartment. But they weren't being together. You know, they were separated in their own apartment. And the worst type of marriage is one where they stay together for the bills or the mortgage or or
the
whatever
children.
or the children. Thank you. Because you and I both seen these TV shows where it's like, can you tell your mother to pass the salt? A child knows a marriage based on how they see their own parents work together. That's how their marriage is going to most likely be. Not always, but it's a huge possibility. So if the child sees her father beat the mother up, or the mother beat the father up, or they yell and scream at each other about money, they'll think that that's normal. But when the parents work together and they get along together, the child is much more likely to have their own successful marriage because they know what a marriage is. I know what a successful marriage is because I saw my own parents. Does not mean that I will have my own successful marriage, but at least I learned how to be sensitive and caring to my own wife to make her feel good about herself, to know that she's important. I learned that from how my father and my mother have treated each other for 39 years, 40 years now.
Mm.
But again, that's every family's different. You can have one family who's abusive and the child is perfect too. But correlation wise, I would say that you need to be a good example to your children. So if you want to teach your children, let the children see you talking about money. Let them see you having conversations. Do a budget. That's the most important thing. I apologize for not bringing this up before. Go to Dave Ramsey's Google Dave Ramsey budget forms. Do a damn budget together. It is boring as hell. It is stressful as hell. But doing a budget, you'll know where your money's going. And that is the most important thing I would say is to help a marriage is to know where your money is going. If you don't know where it's going, you're gonna fight. Because
So I did it with a couple, and we went over the budget. And I have to say, like, they were both in shock from each other. But what the good came from it is that they set time aside where they were going to do it regularly, and they saw the problem areas and they made rules around it. Like, I'll tell you a quick story of my own, of like a budget of my own. I don't let myself go into Costco or Target because I know those are huge money suckers for me because it has all the varieties. So I would rather go to like CVS and overpay for toothpaste than go to Costco and spend like $600 on a bill of stuff that I regret buying. So, you know, it's thinking how to do it, and it's exactly that. Sit down with a budget and don't judge the budget. Like I tell clients when we do it, just do it. And then let's worry about it after, what comes of it. And then it's also going to get better, and over time you're going to refine it. That's the word I'm looking for. You're going to refine the budget over time. You're going to see things that you forgot. Like I had a client, she texted me, oh no, I forgot my dog in the boat. And I was like, totally fine, just add it in. You know, like it was
Yeah.
things that like were seasonal or like not as often, so she forgot. It starts somewhere. And if you need help with those, I can give you a training on that. I have great training on how to do like a simple.
If it wasn't for you.
Sorry, my phone. I had a, I had a pop up. I apologize.
It's all good. So doing the budget, looking through your negotiables, non-negotiables, people don't understand that. And I'm going to close with that skill is when you do a budget, your non-negotiables are rent and utilities and food. It's food, clothing, shelter, medical, health insurance, basic necessities. It's not luxuries of travel, Uber and things like that. A client of mine asked me a question. He goes, so what happens now? He goes, if I go to Bermuda and I spend $12,000, I go, well, you're going to have that surprise when you come back because it's not on your budget. So if you did that regardless of your budget, you put yourself into that hole versus looking at your budget of where can I get that $12,000 from so that I'm not in that hole.
Well, I'll say one last thing also. It's
We
like
keep saying
most
that.
people. I can do this all night. It's I. One thing my wife and I do is I'm very cheap in many ways. So much so my joke in Spanish is my Spanish gang name is El Cheapo, but it's it's the idea that if I want to travel, I'm going to travel for like $1,000 for the whole trip. So I'll get the $300 for the flight, and it'll be $700 for traveling. I'll go for $1,000. But again, you can go wherever the heck you want. It's just you have to communicate about it. Put in the budget. So, but here's the issue: if you have $2,000 in savings, you make $6,000 a month, or I'm sorry, $10,000 a month combined for your income, and you're spending $13,000 a month, you're not doing it properly. Something has to be taken off, whether it's cable, whether it's Sirius XM, whatever it might be. You have to make a decision of what has to go. Necessities have to stay. You have to pay for food. But again, you can get rid of the soda. You can get rid of the McDonald's. Get rid of the eating out. I don't eat out much. I don't like eating out because they rip you off. $15 for a salad, $7 for a coffee. It bothers me that I can make my own coffee for 10 cents. You know, so the idea is that just you have to pick and choose what's important. If you can afford it, go for it. But whatever you do with a budget. I like using Mint as my app to put all my credit cards and all my accounts in so I can look at it. So you can go through it at the end of the month. And also, one last about the budget, you have to do the budget in the beginning of the month and you have to match it at the end of the month. It's not just do the budget and move on. You actually have to match it. So at the end of the month, did you actually spend $1,000 on food? Did you spend 800? Did you spend 1,200 or 1,500? Double check both. So before you do another budget, so for my wife and I will be doing a budget tomorrow or Tuesday because she's working tonight. So after this week, we'll do a new budget. We're going to check what we did last month and how we did. Is it a good month budget wise or not? If it's not, we learn from it. Things will fall into your lap that you have to pay for. A new air conditioner, uh, you have to fix the car tires, whatever it might be. Life happens. But just put it in the budget. And that's it.
Right. Put everything in the budget. And also, that information leaves clues to help you improve the budget and your money skills, and also helps you get more intimate with money and your um, awareness around it. So, with that, my friends, I think we will close. I was waiting for Mendy to say something, but I think you
I'm done.
agreed. So with that, my friends, I am going to close this live for tonight. As always, any questions, please let me know. If you like this, we are thinking of to continuing it on Sunday nights. I call it like the binge Netflix episodes of about money, finance, divorce, and all of those things. If you want to see specific topics, maybe like in divorce about like child support or money, more specific stuff with like taxes, whatever it is, on my end, his end or whatever it is, please let us know and it will come right to you. Have a good night and talk to you soon.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.